Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cromulent Craic Show. I'm Dillhouse.
And I'm Duffy Beer, Duffy.
Duff Beer Duffy.
And we're just a couple of embiggened Egypts who are here to chat about every Simpson episode from the very beginning.
So speaking of Duffy beers, why don't you, the listener, grab one of them, or a crab juice, or a frosty chocolate milkshake, and to get started. Get yourself cozy, and let's get started for some Simpsons goodness.
Please don't grab Duffy Beer.
And don't grab
Get your hands off me.
Grab a can of Duffy beer.
So how are you today, Dillhouse?
I'm doing good. We're having a cup of tea while we're...
Nice cuppa.
Cuppa.
We grabbed, we should put down the thing instead. Duff Beer, cuppa tea.
Cup of tea. The Simpsons don't drink tea, don't they? Know?
I don't think they've ever drank Long Island tea. Marge kind of likes them, I think.
Iced tea.
Iced tea. Americans don't really drink tea.
It's more of a coffee kind of thing.
But yeah, we're here today. We're looking back on the fourth episode of The Simpsons. There's no disgrace like home.
So, who wrote and directed this one then, Duffy Beer?
You've quite a lot of people involved. The whole gang. The whole gang's here.
The whole gang? Mike Reese, Al Jean?
Yeah, it was written by Mike Reese and Al Jean and directed by Greg Vanzo and Kent Butterworth.
You might remember Kent Butterworth from the infamous Butterworth incident.
Butterworth of Some Enchanted Evening. We'll get into that in a minute, yeah. And this episode aired in America all the way back on January 28, 1990.
It'll be interesting to see then when we get to the context section what was happening there and
Oh, I can't wait.
reeling in the years and the Duff years.
Yeah. I'm kind of sick of the 90s.
Yeah, well, we're going to be in them for a long time.
We're going to be in them for a long time.
Pretty much all the golden age of the Simpsons.
Yeah. But I think this is one of the earliest episodes to be produced because since Kent Butterworth was like associated with it, he co-directed it, and he had directed Some Enchanted Evening, which was meant to be the pilot episode, as you might remember. But when it came back from Korea that time, the animation was a complete disaster, apparently.
That was the Butterworth incident that we mentioned, and I think, when we get to Some Enchanted Evening, we'll go more into depth in that.
Yeah.
But, so Kent Butterworth was still involved in this, which is how you know it's early.
Yeah, because...
In true Irish kind of fashion, people get thrown under the bus.
Exactly. Who did this? He did.
Get him.
Get him. So, so the animation was deemed too cartoony. So Kent Butterworth, I think, was more into that kind of Hanna-Barbera animation. He worked on Tiny Toons. Do you remember the Looney Tunes with the babies? And none of the guys wanted that. Like Matt Groening didn't want that. And so he was kind of dropped. So Fox had to delay the series in order to get the quality they wanted. And directorial retakes were handled by David Silverman, who had estimated that about 70% of everything had to be redone.
So Butterworth's work was scrapped and
like, this is crap, and just rips him up in front of him. And Butterworth was dropped as director, and in a 2009 interview with Vanity Fair about the incident, the Butterworth incident.
Don't talk about the Butterworth.
Poor Butterworth. He said, quote, "It was not fun. Needless to say, my employment on The Simpsons was over." So I get the impression he was fired.
Just justice for Butterworth,
yeah.
I think.
And he was a very talented. I think, he had worked with Ralph Bakshi. He's
worked on big shows and stuff. Yeah.
It's just he himself, I don't know, there was just, as we know from the early days, there was just communication issues, I think, on the animation studio and the writing staff and just different visions. But
this guy was the sacrificial lamb then for the rest of the Simpsons.
Throw him into the pit.
Get the Butterworth. Get the Butterworth.
And because There's No Disgrace Like Home was one of the earlier episodes we produced around the same time as the pilot, it was seemed he was dropped. And so Greg Vanzo completed the episode.
And who was Greg Vanzo then, Duffy Beer? Was he involved in any of the later Simpsons or not?
Yeah, he was the founder of Rough Draft Studios, and he has worked on several shows, including The Simpsons and Futurama. And I think also that Disenchantment.
The newest one of the three of them. Oh, so he's still Still pretty tight with
he's-
Matt Groening.
Yeah, I think he was kept. You survive for now, Vanzo. And it was written by Mike Reese and Al Jean. So they're Harvard boys, these posh boys.
Harvard.
Yeah.
This is where the Simpsons mathematics crossover comes in, isn't it?
Yeah, they're all a bunch of nerds.
Geniuses at math, and they also were geniuses at comedy from the looks of
It
it.
kind of makes you feel bad. It's like, oh,
I
they're
can't
good
even-
at everything.
I can't even make one joke or do one sum.
one you. Me no smart. And yeah, they met at Harvard and they wrote together for the Harvard Lampoon. And Mike Reese became co-president of the Harvard Lampoon alongside fellow Simpsons writer John Vitti, who we covered in Bart the Genius and the second episode. So Mike Reese and Al Jean served as showrunners during the Simpsons' third and fourth seasons, and they later created The Critic.
The Critic,
Yeah.
which you might remember from another Simpsons episode that we'll
Yeah.
hopefully get to.
Yeah,
The
eventually.
weird crossover episode, but
Yeah.
a real classic.
Yeah, The Critic. I didn't know The Critic was a show itself.
I didn't know either
No.
until
I have to say, The Simpsons introduced me to The Critic, and apparently, oh, well, I don't know if we'll ever get to it, but hopefully we do. But you know, the way they wanted to feature, John Lovitz voiced The Critic, and they
John Lovitz.
John Lovitz. Why do birds suddenly appear every time?
You are near.
So they wanted to have, The Critic crossover, and Matt Groening was like, ew, no, get away from my show, I won't have it. And
I always
kind of
thought
hurts. I think they were very salty about that from what I read in
I-
later things.
I always thought that the Critic character looked very out of place for The Simpsons. I remembered before I knew that it was its own show.
Yeah.
There was always
He's
something.
so small.
He's so small and weird looking.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the only spin-off show kind of thing coming out of a Simpsons creator, was it, Duffy Beer?
Oh, so Mike Reese also created the webtoon Queer Duck. Queer Duck. So Queer Duck is
With the song done by RuPaul
RuPaul, yeah.
from Drag Race fame.
Yeah. I love RuPaul from But I'm a Cheerleader. He's very good in that.
Oh, you were saying we have to watch that.
Yeah, it's a brilliant movie. And it's like RuPaul plays a converted gay man. So he's like playing a straight RuPaul. And he's like the straightest acting character in it. And it's RuPaul. But
What was the RuPaul crossover we saw recently actually with?
oh, Zig and Zag!
It was Zig and Zag, yeah, and they're in the elevator with RuPaul.
So, for anyone who's not Irish, Zig and Zag they're these little puppets. I suppose Muppets, maybe you could say Irish Muppets.
Yeah,
They
I
feel
think
more like Muppets, and
Yeah.
yeah. So they were hosts for a TV show, a kids' TV show, The Den on RT2, and
Essential childhood viewing from Ireland.
even though I think we would have been very young. These guys would have been out very early 90s.
I have very memories of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was more Dustin. I remember Dustin and Saki.
They're mostly what I remember, but I do remember Zig and Zag as well.
Yeah, and Zig and Zag, so they were these two guys with socks, kind of more bags kind of thing. And there's like a thing of Zig or Zag, one of them in a lift in an elevator with RuPaul, and RuPaul's kind of coming on to, or being very flirty, I think.
I think so.
And he's getting flustered. He's like,
He
whoa.
runs out of the
Yeah. And it's just not what you're ever expecting.
So RuPaul did the intro Queer Duck.
Queer
He's a
Duck.
hell of a guy.
He's a queer duck. So Queer Duck is basically just an extremely flamboyant gay duck. He's got like a little pride vest on and everything. And he's there. It's just a webtoon on for about 2 minutes. And it's kind of like the same joke over and over, that he's just very gay and he likes penis. Of any animal, I think. I don't know. There's humans in it. I don't
Oscar
know.
Wildcat.
Oscar Wildcat and openly gay tour. There's good puns in it, I have to give it, but it does
Pun game is strong.
yeah. And there's an episode, I think it's like episode 5 or 6 of Queer Duck, which features Dr. Laura. So Laura, it's like Schesinger. Schlesinger.
Schlesinger.
Oh, yeah, and she was a real American talk radio host and agony aunt. So one of these kind of like phone in kind of probably like Joe. Talk to Joe.
Hey, Joe Duffy.
Joe Duffy.
So this is kind of then similar to what we'd be getting into in this episode then.
Yeah, so
a call-in radio station.
Yeah,
with
like
a doctor.
We're a radio psychiatrist, yeah. And it's kind of funny. I just find it's funny that Mike Reese has used a radio psychiatrist twice in his writings, this and Dr. Marvin Monroe in this episode we're going to see. And not that it's like if I had a nickel for every time, it's like it would
crazy psychiatrist.
Be
two nickels.
Be 2 nickels, which doesn't seem like much, but just weird that happened twice.
It's a very strange coincidence.
It is, because I don't know if it's like such a big thing anywhere else in the world. Maybe it's just an American thing.
Probably American in the 90s.
Yeah, like there's Frasier and that. And
so you've a theory, Duffy Beer, that maybe Mike Reese was done dirty.
I think Mike Reese rang in like anonymous, like, you know, secretly into one of these shows, and he's like, I'm having issues with. I don't want to get in trouble with saying something, so I'm not making up a situation. But I think he said something, and then he got bad advice, and then he's like really salty about it now.
And radio hosts are the bane of his life.
Yeah. And actually, Dr. Laura, she's briefly seen in the Simpsons 11th season, you know, the Treehouse of Horror.
Ooh.
10, yeah. And, you know, when it has all the useless people on the rocket ship and it's heading for the sun.
Yeah,
and it's like,
and she was one of them.
Yeah, and Rosie O'Donnell's like, hey, everybody, clang, clang, clang with the trolley. And that is the most terrifying ending of The Simpsons ever.
So she was one of those that he sent to this. Was it Mike Reese that wrote that episode?
No, I think Mike Reese was gone at that stage. So Mike Reese and has written, I think he wrote for the, you know, screenplay of the Simpson movie. So he kind of went and he came back. And a funny thing, he actually was on that, you know, the Titanic Ocean Gate thing, the submarine.
That killed, a lot of people died in it.
Yeah, he was on that the year before that happened.
Oh my God, he's a lucky boy.
He's lucky. That would give me a very philosophical look on life.
It would be a very
costs, like, that's Simpson money there, because that costs you like thousands to go on that.
That was stupid money.
That's stupid.
To go down and see the Titanic wreckage.
Yeah. What's the point? Go look at an abandoned trolley in a river. That has the same kind of like.
Give your money to charity if you've got that kind of money.
Yeah,
that's nonsense.
Give it to cat charity.
Give it to cat charities, animal charities, the donkeys in Palestine.
Yeah, not giving it to rich people with like a little remote control.
Have a squint at there's the Titanic out there. Why how would that enhance my life?
Mike Reese is using his money badly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say. I'm the psychiatrist he's ringing up, and I'm like, don't spend it on the submarine.
Maybe
he's
that's
like, shut up.
Maybe that's what they were telling him when he was telling about his dream, spending all of his Simpsons money on.
He's like, you know none.
I'm going to one day go down to see the Titanic at the bottom of the ocean. Mike, give over control of your accounts to somebody who's a bit more sensible. Don't do it, Mike Reese.
And it's all Mike Reese. so now we'll go on to Al Jean. Al Jean, he wrote, you know, so he co-created the Critic, and he is the showrunner for The Simpsons now. So from seasons 13 to current day, and he's just, people kind of be like, ever since he became showrunner, because I think Mike Scully was showrunner before him, and I liked those seasons. He did like 11, 12, and that is when it was kind of like deteriorating quality wise, and then. Yeah. When
Al Jean took over, is that when Jerk-Ass Homer became a big thing?
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe he was just given, like, it was already on fire when he's like, here's this mess. And he's like, oh, okay.
He had to put something together out of all this goop.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's those guys. So they'll come up a lot now. I'm pretty sure Al Jean and Mike Reese are just going to be names we're going to be repeating over and over again.
In this episode especially, and this episode, There's No Disgrace Like Home, is explained in the DVD commentary. Like how did they explain it, Duffy Beer?
So yeah, Mike Reese in the DVD commentary for this episode, it's the episode where, according to him, virtually everything is wrong.
So let's see.
So let's see why.
Oakley dokley.
So There's No Disgrace Like Home aired in America all the way back in January 28, 1990. So Duffy Beer, could you fill us in on a little bit on what the cultural context of the time was, what was happening, what was hot, what was not?
What was hot, what was not? Well, this is Reeling in the Years and the Duff Beers.
Do, 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 do.
Do. What was hot? The Simpsons.
Well, it was on its 4th episode.
Yeah. So we had Parenthood was the #1 movie again at the UK box office.
So Steve Martin and a load of children.
A load of children. They're like, I don't know.
Seems to be the go-to formula.
Go-to formula. Steve Martin in a house with children.
Not in that
Not
way.
in that.
That sounds dodgy.
Social services,
Steve
FBI.
Martin trained to be the parent of a lot of children.
Parent of, and struggling, the ups and downs of parenthood.
Very relatable for a lot of boomers at the time.
Yeah,
probably.
middle class boomers. They would have had probably their big house in the suburbs.
In America, they would have.
Yeah.
On credit.
One job, and he's like, just my office job at the minute. Ugh.
Stay-at-home
Peterson wants
mom.
another report on his desk by Monday, and
So-
I've got these kids. Ugh.
He had Parenthood, and then what the other one was Don't Tell the Bride, was it? Or
Don't tell the bride. Father of the bride.
Father of the Bride.
Don't tell the bride about her new dress.
Yeah,
Woo.
say yes to the dress.
Say yes to the dress.
And then Cheaper by the Dozen was the ones when we were younger.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of him just being like we said, that kind of relatable dad humor.
Relatable dad. Did you know Steve Martin is like a really good banjo player?
Really?
Yeah, I think he focuses more on music now than acting.
Oh, fair play to him.
Yeah. He wrote a musical. I don't know what the name of the musical was. I think it was nominated for a few Tonys years ago.
So there you go,
Yeah.
Cromulent Craic Show listeners. Check out Steve Martin's banjo
My little banjo.
and his musical.
Deliverance. I want Deliverance remade with Steve Martin now.
And what was the USA box office #1 then, Duffy Beer?
The USA were having Driving Miss Daisy. Driving me crazy with Miss Daisy. That's the one. So it stars Jessica Tandy, the original Blanche Dubois from A Streetcar Named
Oh.
Desire. Yeah.
I'm sure Simpsons fans would be very familiar with Streetcar Named Desire.
Streetcar Named Marge coming up soon. And it had Morgan Freeman. So Morgan Freeman of Shawshank fame, Shawshank Redemption. Not Martin Freeman of Bilbo Baggins fame. I get my Shawshank Redemption and The Hobbit mixed up all the time.
So in terms of the music charts then, Duffy Beer, what was #1 in Ireland?
So in Ireland, we had a familiar face to enter the charts. We had Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor. Oh, poor Sinead.
Poor Sinead, rest in peace.
R.I.P., yeah.
And this was a cover of Prince song, wasn't it?
The Prince song, yeah. And Sinead was only, I think she just kind of arrived on the scene, really.
Was this her breakout one?
I think so, yeah. I think she kind of was involved in music, but this just blew her up, really.
Yeah, and then she became big during the 90s then after this, didn't she?
Yeah, and then there was that whole unfortunate incident on SNL that kind of, like, she was telling the truth, and then it was like the bit where she rips the picture of the priest of the Pope.
The Pope, yeah, the
Yeah.
big priest.
And she's like, fight the real evil, and America was not happy.
That's when the pitchforks come out.
That was just unreal. And she never got an apology, I don't think. And then even other things, like I know back in 2013 there was, do you remember Miley Cyrus had the big the song We Can't Stop and Wrecking Ball?
Yeah.
And I think for the Wrecking Ball video where she was she was naked on the Wrecking Ball basically. And Sinead O'Connor said something, along the lines of, don't be kind of objectifying yourself, be your musician, I think she was kind of more giving her advice of kind of, she's a veteran in the industry, and Miley Cyrus then was like, oh, you're crazy, kind of. And then she did apologise when Sinead died, but sure. Sinead never got kind of any closure, I don't
While
think.
she was alive, yeah.
No.
Yeah, and she had a tough life then after that, didn't she? Losing the son and that.
Yeah, it's just very And she's obviously the nothing compares. She the music video for that is just so iconic. Sinead's there, and obviously her head's shaved bald, and
It's the Sinead O'Connor look, isn't it? The kind of
yeah.
like bald head and the
But she was so gorgeous at the same time. You're just like, God, that bone structure, Sinead. But she tried to make herself so unglamorous, and yeah, she was just a
she
beautiful soul, I
she created a
suppose.
new kind of style then of like
Yeah,
a lot of you see a lot of people pulling it off now from like
yeah.
a lot of fellow millennials and Gen Zs.
Maybe I'll try it.
That bald head. I think you could work with it, Duffy Beer.
I look like Phil Mitchell, I think, if I tried it.
Alright.
You won't, Ron. Nothing compares to you,
Well,
Sharon.
well, speaking of Phil Mitchell, what was going on in the UK number
In
ones?
the UK, we had Kylie. Well, actually, no, that was more Australian, but my Australian accent is more Cockney, I think.
Well, it was fitting that it was Australian because which Kylie did we have?
We have the Kylie Minogue.
The one and only.
Yeah, Kylie. I think her name's Kylie Ann Minogue.
And not to be confused with Kylie Jenner, who tried to
Ooh.
sue her, didn't she?
Yeah, Kylie Jenner came along a few years ago and said, I'm copywriting the name Kylie.
The
And
cheek.
the absolute neck of her. Like, to think if there is any Kylie, we all know it's obviously Kylie Minogue. So we're big fans of Kylie Minogue, aren't we?
Oh, we sure are, yeah.
Sure are.
And which song was the number one in 1990
So
in the UK?
not one of her classics, in my opinion. To be honest, it wouldn't be one. I think if you did a top 20 of Kylie Minogue songs, it wouldn't appear on it. Maybe if you're an old school fan, really. But it was Tears on My Pillow. Tears on my pillow.
It's a bit of a slower one, isn't it, for me? I think it's...
Well, it is a cover, so it's a cover of it's like Little Anthony and the Imperial song. So that song was back from the 50s, kind of an old crooner song. And Kylie Minogue did a cover for this. So she was in this film called The Delinquents, and it starred her as the main character in her feature film debut.
Oh, before her like decorated acting career, where she got to be in Street Fighter. She got to play Cammy in Street Fighter.
Yeah. So she was in Neighbours. I think we all know her from Neighbours and wear dungarees, and then she was in this, and then of course Street Fighter,
Her biggest one. That was the apex.
Yeah. Who's that? Claude?
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I always get his name mixed up. Jean-Claude.
That was in the peak of his career.
Yeah, good 90s kind of stuff. And they dated, I think, then. I used to get him mixed up with Jason Statham then. And I thought she dated Jason Statham for years.
Yeah, Jason Statham came after him.
But yeah, what's your favourite Kylie song?
It's got to be Spinning Around. I know it's maybe her most famous
So
one.
good.
But it's just, I think like nothing compares to you. Tears on My Pillow is a bit one of our slower ones. I like the ones that are kind of good crack.
Yeah.
I think you do too, do you? If you got to give us your top three there, Duffy Beer.
Top three. I love Love at First Sight. That's the one. Baby, when I never know words when I'm singing, but I love Get Out of My Way. So I saw Kylie Minogue live a few years ago, and she played Get Out of My Way as the first song, and I was coming in, so we were coming in all late, and we were standing, and I was like, get out of my way, please, please.
The music was very fitting for you trying to get into see her.
I was so aggressive. I was like, let me see Kylie.
I gotta see Kylie.
And I was like, get out of me way, please, I'm sorry. And All the Lovers is good. I love that one. All the Lovers. And she's just so many. I don't know. Spinning Around's a great one as well, though. Just puts me in such a good mood. I should be so lucky. She definitely has.
It's great crack with like a lot of drinking you as well.
Oh yeah, and she actually played Electric Picnic there. She was the headliner. And now I'm not a fan of her newer stuff. I wasn't a fan when she went country, and then I'm not a big fan how she's gone, but she fits it so well. It is quite a natural, it's very electronic, baby break the tension. And she played, I think the set list was a lot of her new stuff, and she did play the goldies, The oldies and the goldies.
And I think that, like, as you
Agree.
said, we're big fans of Kylie, and I think we're going to make it a mission for this podcast
Yes.
to get Kylie on as a guest for the Australia
The
episode.
Australian. She'd be like, oh, I love the boot episode. I would love to discuss it.
We need to get her to say, to call out like Kylie Jenner in that episode and say, you call that a Kylie? This is a Kylie.
Kylie. We're going to call it the greatest beef in history. Cromulent Craic beef.
Cromulent Craic beef. So what was the big news events for this week then, Duffy Beer? We've covered the movies and the music. What was happening around Ireland at this time?
Yeah, so...
And worldwide.
And worldwide. I don't think it was a terribly busy week. I think on the 28th January 1990, unfortunately in Ireland, it would have been kind of a lot of troubles kind of headlines really. So a teenager called Charles Love was killed while attending the Bloody Sunday commemoration in Derry on the 28th January 1990. He was hit by debris when an IRA bomb targeting British security forces exploded in Derry. So it's going to be probably a reoccurring thing where there's going to be a lot of unfortunate, it's going to be troubles events in Ireland.
Yeah, if you watch Reading in the Years, then you know what to expect.
But and also on a lighter note, on January 28th, so there was the big Super Bowl.
Super Bowl XXIV. Do you know what that is, Duffy Beer?
Is that 24?
24, correct.
Ooh, I could go back to Roman times.
This is where the San Francisco 49ers defeated the Denver Broncos.
I've heard of the Denver Broncos.
Did you hear the 49ers?
49ers. No.
I think you're more interested in the halftime show, aren't you?
Halftime, yeah.
What was going on there?
Ooh, this was the big one. Okay, screw Beyonce, screw Michael Jackson. Okay, because we have... it was a salute to both the New Orleans... Just New Orleans, like the place. Not
in general?
In general. And I think...
New Orleans.
In New Orleans. Oh, there's your Blanche Dubois connection now, guys.
Straight back to it.
And so then you have, so it's a celebration of the New Orleans and the 40th anniversary of the comic strip The Peanuts.
Charlie Brown.
With Charlie Brown, because he kicks a football probably.
And he misses.
It's just, all it is just Charlie Brown being bullied and a dog dancing.
Even his parents just go, wah, 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 wah.
Wah, wah, we hate you, Charlie Brown. Wah, wah. So that was like, it's a strange day when this episode aired.
A lot happening. Of good and particularly very bad things as well. But...
yeah, like the Peanuts halftime show.
Yeah. All right, let's get on into the episode.
So we'll get started. Woo!
Ay, caramba!
All right, so let's get stuck into the plot of There's No Disgrace Like Home. So the chalkboard gag for this one is Parters writing, I will not burp in class. I think that the chalkboard gags are very kind of tame in these first... a lot like the couch gags as well.
Yeah, it's just, in this one, it's just, they're just running to the couch and Homer's squeezed off and then says, do.
Do. I say, Bart.
That was most uncouth of you. Yeah, the episode starts with Bart and Lisa and they're fighting. What are they fighting about?
Who loves Homer more?
Yeah, it's like, you love him more. No, you love him more. And Homer's like, breaks him up.
He's kind of touched by it, isn't he? But then...
it's like, carry on. No, you love him more. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, it's like it's a bad thing.
Nobody loves Homer.
This episode, Duffy Beer, this is one where we'll get into it more later, but the characters are a little bit jumbled up because in this one it's Homer that's trying to get them to be on their best behaviour.
Yeah, we'll definitely see this. It's like at the moment when the episode starts off, say Lisa's very brashy and we see her be really brashy. Like Bart's being always the same. Bart's the only consistent character I can think of.
I think so.
Yeah, because like he's maintained that whole kind of like little brash kind of persona. Homer's kind of gone from kind of being like, oh, I'm a family man, like kind of a well-meaning dad, to what we know him kind of as like a bumbling idiot that would trade his family for like a TV and a beer.
But in this one, it's like he's he's embarrassed by his family, isn't he? As you said, he's
Yeah.
embarrassed by Lisa being a bit bratty and that, and he's trying to get them to be on their best behaviour because he
Yeah.
wants to lick up to Mr. Burns.
Yeah, they're going to this big company picnic, which I wish, I don't know, picnics don't exist.
That's the American companies.
The American companies, it's like
even the evil ones like the nuclear power plant and Mr. Burns have all those perks.
nice little corporation kind of
Days out
days
and
out.
stuff.
And yeah, so he just doesn't want the family to embarrass him in front of Mr. Burns. And they bring a lot of they have all this jelly to bring with them, which I suppose is like an American thing as well. Jello.
I used to love that scene when I was a kid, just all the jellies kind of in the
The
background.
little wobbly jellies.
Just the way that they're wobbly and they're different colours and stuff.
Yeah, it's like a sensory thing. And so fun fact, woo, Bart was meant to be a spokesman for Jello.
What?
Wash. So yeah, before the series The Simpsons went on air, Matt Groening pitched Bart as a spokesperson for Jello. He wanted Bart to sing, you know, like Jello, and then burp the letter O. And it was rejected. They were like, oh, we can't have that on our good old Christian TV.
So he didn't end up becoming the spokesperson for Jello.
No.
Well, Jello missed out there. Was this before they knew how big Bart was going to be?
Yeah, they missed out. And like,
He's the spokesperson for a lot of other stuff.
I wouldn't know Jello at all. Again, an American thing probably. It's trademarked for Kraft Heinz, so Heinz beans.
Oh.
Yeah. I find funny another fact. I'm just running the facts today.
Keep them coming.
Henry John Heinz, who's the founder of Heinz Company, is like a cousin, like second cousin of Donald Trump.
What?
Yeah. Donald Trump has that. That's why he's orange, because he's a bean.
He was eating too many beans.
He was like, oh, because they would get beans probably every, like, as presents every Christmas, and then they're like, Donald, eat your beans, and
These
then
beans are magnificent.
These beans. No beans, sad.
That's crazy. It's all set up. It's
Just
all
show-
fixed.
All this, he's got that bean money.
It all came from Heinz.
Heinz. He just had a small loan of $1 million.
In beans.
It was magic beans as well.
Yeah.
And he had a little beanstalk.
That's the thing. The Heinz great grandfather was probably Jack and the Beanstalk.
Yeah. The Trump lore.
Trump lore goes back deep.
So back, yeah, there's your... Who says you don't learn anything?
Yeah. Listen to the Cromulent Craic Show instead of school.
QI standard. So when the family arrives at Mr. Burns' mansion for the picnic, Homer once again reminds his family that they have to behave in a normal fashion. So, you know, no embarrassing him in front of his boss. And Mr. Burns... So this isn't our first introduction to Mr. Burns, as we know. We've seen him now in
the
Homer's
last one,
Odyssey and in the Christmas episode. So he's kind of established as being kind of a sort of cruel and tyrannical, you know, horrible boss, really. And apparently it's already established that he'll fire any employee, you know, on just a whim if they're just... Yeah.
If he takes any kind of annoyance or disliking to them, he'll get rid of them.
He's like, my precious company and my precious business. The image of Burns is kind of the power plant, and
Smithers is a bit more...
White Smithers. Yellow
That's what I was going to
Smithers.
say. He's feeling a bit more himself in this one, isn't he?
It's this is the
But even as a character, he's more of a kind of like servant to Mr. Burns in this one.
yeah,
than the
he's
last one
still like
kind
a
of son.
sycophant. Like I think this is where it's really established. This is where Mr. Burns and Smithers are kind of like that little kind of dynamic between them, and it's we just see, so like, say Mr. Burns here, like, he'll fire anyone that he's like, right, if no one's enjoying the picnic, and there's one boy and he accidentally gets his father fired by Mr. Burns because he mumbles, he's like, oh, I hope you're glad to be here today, and Mr. Burns, and then this boy's like, I'm not, and I'm missing the Little League game to be here, and yeah, so, and then they're like, quiet boy, and then Miss Burns is like, have him fired, his whole disgusting family, I'm
So
grateful.
everyone's walking on eggshells
Eggshells.
around these They're in this tower of jello.
Yeah, the tower, it crumbles. It's so delicate. This is where like a tyrant lives.
Yeah, there's a big metaphor
And
there.
another fact, actually, so this boy and the family, so the boy is called Tom Gamble.
Tom Gamble.
Yeah. Or the father, no, I think the boy is called Tom, and the father's called like Mr. Gamble. So he's named after a writer on The Simpsons.
Oh,
And it was just like a kind of cute little mention as well.
I wonder, did he have like a boss that he was scared of, and he was like, I'll put myself in there
Myself. And just as like
to reflect on macaroni maybe. Huh?
Ooh, beef. But I think like they're okay because I think they're in like another episode, Dancing Homer episode. So they're still at like, which is another corporate night out for them. They get to all these
So
things.
he's still working at the power plant.
Yeah, they probably were like, oh gosh, he was our only like nuclear technician. We probably should bring him back.
Bring him back.
I know the code.
Well, we'll see later on that to bring Homer back.
Yeah, Homer's got some sort of connection there.
Yeah, I've never seen a man get fired and rehired as much.
So Homer notices that Mr. Burns approves this normal, well-mannered family. They treat each other with respect.
These are like the ideal nuclear kind of.
Yeah.
Do you get the pun?
Oh, it's so funny.
Nuclear family.
Yeah, don't rub it in, man. He wonders why his own family are so dysfunctional. So the picnic is just off anyway to a rough start. Bart is chasing swans. Little bollocks.
You're not a fan of Bart, aren't you?
No, I really don't like Bart in the early seasons, and we'll see later in this episode. I don't like him at all.
I think he does have like very little redeeming qualities apart from Bart the genius, maybe.
Yeah.
Where he's a bit sympathetic, and these ones he's literally just a psychopath child.
Yeah, I can see it's like, be worried about Bart, everybody.
Yeah.
It's like, and there's like, you see Lisa swimming in the fountain. So Lisa is just female Bart. Lisa won't get her own personality until I think maybe Moaning Lisa.
Yeah, she's so inconsistent up until then.
Like she kind of has Tiny like saying Bart the genius. We do see her being kind of clearly she's smarter than Bart, but it's not really still.
But she still can't. Remember they're at the musical in Bart the Genius, and she's joining in with the thing.
Yeah.
Like that's not what Lisa would be doing.
No.
And definitely not be swimming around in the fountain.
It's just like Lisa has really bad ADHD or something, and it's just yeah. And then we also see Marge getting drunk. So Marge is with all these like mums that kind of go and dump their kids and
have a glass of wine.
It's like punch, and it's
Or
like
punch, yeah.
punch. So Marge, I think we will see is a functioning alcoholic more so than Homer. I think like Marge is more, Marge has a very addictive kind of personality when it comes to gambling and drinking, and
she's always on the edge.
Yeah. And so she performs a musical number. So this is kind of like one of the earlier jokes I can remember so far of like, this is where the show goes really zany.
Yeah.
This is just a random musical number, and you can kind of tell it's trying to be kind of just a tiny bit cartoonish.
It's very cool, but
yeah.
I love the song.
Yeah, it's like, hey brother, pour the wine, which is a song written by David Seville, who is Seville. Not Savile.
It's kind of, you're like, it's a bit close.
He's best known for creating the cartoon band, the best boy band ever. No, not the Beatles. Not One Direction.
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
And writing Witch Doctor.
So this guy's a musical genius.
This guy knows his stuff. If you want a novelty song from the 50s, this guy wrote it. So, and this one was kind of like sang by Dean Martin, I think it was.
Oh.
Yeah, nice kind of smooth version. Hey, brother, pour the wine. Yeah, so Marge is going absolutely crazy. Gal's night out at the picnic. Homer has to whisk her away and tells her to keep it together because Mr. Burns is about to give a toast. And everyone at the picnic gathers as Mr. Burns is giving a speech. And it's like, Marge is being really annoying because she's like, it's like, oh, Marge, you're causing a scene. It's like, oh, sorry, everybody. Sorry. And it's like, oh, everyone's kind of very annoying.
There's the sack race as well, isn't there?
Oh yeah, and Bart wants to be like, so everyone's letting
Bart is taking it seriously.
yeah, and everyone kind of lets Mr. Burns win, and you know,
Homer has to like catch up to Bart and tackle him to the ground.
tackle him, and so yeah, it's basically it's like you do not mess with Mr. Burns.
And
So
Homer's kind of a sycophant as well.
yeah,
I know
Homer's-
he's kind of always scared of his job, but he usually doesn't really care and he stands up for himself. But in this
Yeah.
one, he's really licking up to Mr. Burns. Like,
bootlicker. So yeah, and again, like say Mr. Burns is giving this speech and he's telling everyone, "Oh, thank you for coming," and then immediately threatens to release the hounds in like 10 minutes. It's like, get out of here.
and was that the first release to hounds?
I think it's the first release the hound.
They didn't have bees. Shoot bees out
Shoot
their
bees
mouth.
out their mouth. Or the Richard Simmons
Yeah.
robot. And everyone's heading out anyway, and Homer notices the family ahead of him. The son is giving the father a little kiss and tells him, "Oh, he's had a great time," and Mr. Burns is impressed.
Even after being chased by hounds.
Hasn't got to that.
Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad. And it's like Mr. Burns is impressed by this family, and Homer's like, "Oh, I'll try the same thing," and he's like, "Bart, please kiss me." And Homer, yeah, and then Mr. Burns sees this and he's like, "Ugh, a pathetic attempt to gain his favor."
He's like insulted by
So insulted by it's like, "Oh, he thinks he can play me like that." And then, like, as they're leaving, Homer confronts this man from the perfect family and tells him, like, "Oh, you can stop, like, with the fake cornball routine. You know, I know you hate your family."
You're just looking up to the boss too.
Yeah, and then the man's like reveals he's like, "No, we're actually nice people," and he's like, "I pity you." And yeah, Homer realizes his own family has a problem.
It was the Simpsons.
The Simpsons are dysfunctional, and so he watches this family, the normal family, and the little boy and his sisters. You know, it's like, after you, no, after you.
It's like, aren't they great?
Aren't they? When they sick in your arse.
They love the smell of their own farts.
Smell their own shoe. And so they're like all so polite. And then Homer sees Lisa and Bart and they're like ripping each other's eyes out, trying to get in this thing. And then the man's wife is like, "Oh, honey, are you tired? I'll drive you." And then Marge is just there and she's like so drunk and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna throw up." Bleh. And he imagines Homer's just picturing this family driving off to heaven because they've died.
Yeah. They must have all gotten caught up and eaten by the hounds or something.
Yeah, it's like this is skipped now a few minutes. So they're driving off into heaven and they're like singing B-I-N-G-O, B-I-N-G-O. And then I think this is a cool, again, we've gone a bit
I think this
zany.
is so cool.
This is really like classic Super kind of like animation here, very like Rugrats kind of stuff, where it cuts to Homer and he looks at the family and Bart and Lisa, Marge, Maggie, they're all these little devils.
Their hair looks like fire.
Yeah, fire. And they're like,
These sharp teeth and
like,
stuff.
"You coming in?" And there's a reference to, you know, Freaks the movie and that, you know, the Todd Browning horror movie. And it's like, they're like, one of us. One of us. And yeah, so he's just like, "Oh, these guys have just ruined me."
So Homer is in the shoes of what Marge's character becomes in this one.
Yeah, and like, I might sort of mention it more later, but it does remind me so far of the episode of, you know, the episode where Marge gets the suit.
Yes.
Yeah, and it really reminds me of that episode of where Marge is embarrassed and Marge is trying to, it's kind of the expectations of everyone around her, and I think this episode is kind of like has themes of that. Not as good though.
I think that's what we're going to see in season 1. And I did we mention in the last one, but a lot like the kind of strike episode, the union episode, and that, like, there's a lot of like ideas from season 1 that are. It feels like they kind of went back to them later on with more
Yeah.
scope to do them better and stuff, and they're really like took those ideas and said, let's make a full episode around this and do it more fleshed out
Yeah.
and better written and stuff.
And there's good ideas here. It's just obviously we're not like the
It's
show
the first
is
season.
the
yeah,
first season. They're not established.
It barely
enough.
got out.
Yeah.
Like, it's,
You know, fair play to it, but yeah. So we'll see that like kind of more the plot really is. You just get like you're reminded of other episodes basically
Yeah.
for a lot of the first season.
definitely.
But yeah, so say back to this episode, yeah, Homer is embarrassed of the family, and Homer realizes that he's like, I need to change my family.
Marge is getting drunk.
Yeah, it's Marge. So it's like Bart and Lisa are brats, and Marge is a drunk, and Homer's like envious of this perfect family, wishing it was his own, and yeah, it doesn't feel like Homer.
Yeah,
Homer's the one that would be embarrassing the family.
I completely agree with
Drunk.
that. Yeah, it's.
It's like, I don't.
I think everyone would agree with
Homer
that.
like on his front and he's drunk and the dog goes over and like sniffs his ass
yeah.
and the dog's like
Yeah, I could imagine this scene in a later episode, and maybe Homer gets drunk and starts mouthing off to Mr. Burns or something, and Marge is looking at them all kind of like,
like
"You're really let the family down tonight. All of you." So the day after the picnic then, Marge and the kids are in laying up eating like slobs,
absolute slobs, yeah.
hoovering the food into them.
Marge is there, feet up, lying her lent on the thing, and she's there, blah 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 blah, and they're watching TV, and it's just very unladylike. But it's just really like, unlike Marge.
It's so not like Marge.
Yeah,
It's
you can
so
buy it
funny.
from the kids, but not from Marge.
It's so funny to see. And then Homer's the one who comes marching in.
Yeah, Homer walks in and he's like so ashamed of them from just their behavior from the previous day, and he's like, he just demands that they're all going to eat at the dinner table like a normal family.
And that's where in like the early seasons Duffy Beer, it's like the characters, you can really see that there's no set personalities for them yet.
Like again, Lisa's kind of like a female version of Bart, a bit brashy. Marge is, I suppose, it's just kind of like, she's just sort of like she's gotten drunk at the picnic. She's just sort of someone that's maybe not even that she's repressed. She's a bit of an idiot kind of thing. That's
Yeah.
just like Homer. Like they're kind of like sort
A
of
lot of interchangeable traits kind of between Homer and Marge and between Bart and Lisa, I find.
yeah.
And
And then Maggie. Well, Maggie's
Maggie's so unlike her.
so unlike Maggie. My gosh, Maggie's got all her little catchphrases, and she's like.
So Homer wants everyone to eat at the dinner table and say their prayers and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah,
Before?
say grace. And Homer's like expressing his he's dissatisfied with his troubled family's behavior, and he's just demanding why he was cursed with a family that disrespect him. And
You could see this episode in a later season if they ever returned to this, like during the golden era seasons. You could see it being a Marge episode
yeah,
where Marge is really ashamed. I guess they kind of did return to it with the dress one slightly. didn't
yeah,
they?
the one where she gets that Chanel dress, and she's
She's
there.
embarrassed by the family then.
Yeah, she's like, embarrassed by Bart, embarrassed by Homer. She just wants to fish in, and obviously a far better episode when it comes to writing wise. Yeah,
And I think that's like we said with the Union one and the Homer's Odyssey one, and that you can see a lot of ideas in season one that
yeah,
they were obviously very interesting ideas, and they returned to them then when that scope to make it better and
yeah.
flesh them out.
The
better and
ideas are
stuff.
great. Like, and this is like, I suppose at the time when this was written, it was like 1990. I suppose what other one, it's an animated show, and then it's like what other episode is kind of going into even there that really surreal bit of where there are demons in the car. And they're like,
Driving off to
join
hell.
us. And, just there is a lot of like sort of zany kind of surreal humor going on. So it is like, give it, I suppose it's like, fair play to it. But at the same time, it's just early days. But yeah, and then it's just sort of like Marge and the kids. Marge and the kids are here at the table, and Homer is there. Oh God, why me? And they claim there's nothing wrong with the family, and Homer chooses to prove that there is indeed something very, very wrong with them. And he leads the family on a tour around the neighborhood.
This is actually my favorite part of this episode, and it always was, because I just find that like I don't know, there's just something really fun and funny about them sneaking around the neighborhood.
Peeping Toms.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're peeking into random homes to observe their neighbor's normal family life. And this is the great bit. It's like a neighbor notices Homer spying on the family, and it's just like, Papa, I hear someone outside in the
bushes.
yard in the bushes. That's suspicious. Better get the gun.
It's by far the best joke in the
It
episode.
is. I think it's like the funniest. It actually was like the first time I proper chuckled an episode so far. And
It's very kind of like a season 70 kind of humor, or
Yeah.
season 7 kind of humor.
and you know, and yeah, so they fire a load of warning sounds, and then Homer and the family are like, oh, and they quickly retreat back to the house. And it's funny, it's like, oh, look at this house is a dump. And then
Look at the flowers.
look, I'm trampling this idiot's flowers. And they're like, and Marge's like, Homer, this is our house. So it is like a funny thing where Homer's like, and they go back in to watch TV, and Homer's like, oh.
So after the escapade, or the failed escapade around Evergreen Terrace, Homer goes to Moe's Tavern to drown his sorrows,
Yeah, he's so depressed.
depressed by his family being rude.
Horrible people. And Homer's drinking at the bar and says that his mom, so his mother, told him that he was a big disappointment. She's like, it's like, Homer, he's like going, I'll always remember what my mother said. Homer, you're a huge disappointment, and God bless her, she was right.
That's a lot of baggage for Homer to carry.
Yeah. And then that's another kind of, he breaks the whole canon of the show, because then you find out his mom was always like so loving
And caring.
and yeah, very supportive. So it's just sort of like, again, no one's character is correct.
Season 1 is kind of like, I don't know, it's like set in their own little, each episode's in their own little bubble.
You never know what you're going to get.
Season 1 is like a box of chocolates.
And then Barney is like, well, maybe she's right. Or so he says something to insult Homer anyway, of like, maybe your family is horrible and maybe you should be like really ashamed of them. And then Homer's like, hey, Barney, they're my family. And they start,
Punches him,
they start getting a really vicious fight. Like, Homer and Barney are meant to be good pals. And then it's just like, I haven't met them. And Homer replies, well, here's 5 you haven't met yet. And he punches them. And then also another thing of like, but he only has 4 fingers.
Here's 4 you never met.
4 you haven't met, which obviously wouldn't make sense either. But, and then they're having this proper
Bar brawl.
And then next thing, there's a TV ad on the telly. And it's a commercial for
Dr. Monroe.
Dr. Marvin Monroe.
who is a therapist, and so he has this it's like, honey, you're so depressed, or why won't you go to work? And he's like, shut up. No, you shut up. No, you shut up. And the little kid comes in, why don't you both shut up? It's like, hello folks, is this like your family? And
standard American affairs.
oh yeah, Dr. Phil style. And then so Dr. Marvin Monroe's voice was based on David Stephen Vyckoff, yeah. So he was an American psychiatrist and media personality. So kind of like early days of kind of Dr. Phil, where it's like someone who
phone-in psychiatrist kind of,
yeah,
was it?
maybe Frasier. This would be before Frasier as well. But kind of like someone that's, I have a medical degree of some sort, but you're kind of like, do you?
It's like
Or psychology degree or something.
Back alley psychology.
Yeah, it's like someone just says they have a degree and maybe they're a credible source, who knows. But yeah, so this guy was a big thing in the 90s apparently. So yeah, and then so enticed by Monroe's guarantee of family bliss or double your money back, Homer decides to sign the Simpsons up for an appointment. Ooh. So Marge and the kids are watching Itchy and Scratchy, and I believe it is the first Itchy and Scratchy, or the first appearance of Itchy and Scratchy, kind of like a full-on...
The premiere.
Yeah.
The pilot of Itchy and Scratchy.
It was so different, and there was like 3 extra characters, and Itchy was pink.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't. But so they're watching that, and then Homer walks into the living room and announces he's made an appointment at Dr. Monroe's Family Therapy Center.
Dr. Monroe's family therapy
Dr.
session.
Monroe. Again, it's a kind of a strange Homer thing because it's a type of impulsive decision you'd expect him to make,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not
for
the
practical-
reason. Like
yeah.
he'd come in and say that he's like,
Going to clown college or
yeah,
not something that would be a practical thing for his family's well-being. Yeah, and then in order to raise $250, which is needed for the session,
$250
yeah, that's quite a lot. Even back in the
That's why-
90s, that'd be like raising, I'd say, $5,000 or something.
That's why later in the season, Dr. Monroe's in like Greece and all of that on
Yeah,
the news.
Oh, I'm on a vacation here.
Yeah,
Live interviews from, these lovely resorts.
all of his holidays from the $250 sessions.
But we'll see. We'll see at the end. But like, he has a really bad business kind of ethic of kind of giving back. Oh, double your money back. But maybe it's always works brilliantly though. He never has to fork out. I believe he never has to fork out the $500
Because he's the most successful
he's so
psychologist.
successful. Yeah.
So how's Homer gonna make this $250, Duffy Beer?
Homer decides to pawn off the TV.
Are we sure this isn't Marge?
Yeah, this is a freak move for Homer. This is just like, yeah, so he's just, the rest of the family are horrified, but it's such an un-Homer thing to
I
do.
think even when Marge and the kids are watching Itchy and Scratchy, isn't she laying up on the couch? Like,
Yeah, like Marge is so slobbish in this episode. We saw her eat like a pig, and then she's there with her feet up on the furniture. Marge would never.
it's very funny. It's very
Yeah.
funny to see, knowing the context of the rest of The Simpsons.
Yeah. So then, Homer, wants to pawn off TV, and Marge, he's carrying the TV like down to the pawn shop, and Marge is there, and she's like, "Oh, Homer, can't I like sell my wedding ring instead?" Which would,
What?
and there's like such a, again, like I think there's another episode where Marge is there with her wedding ring, and she's clutching onto it, thinking Homer might sell it. I don't know the exact.
And she's so sentimental about stuff.
Yeah. Like, in the film, she's kept the wedding. She runs back into the house for the wedding video.
Yeah.
Which a wedding that didn't exist, like, because
Yeah.
they got married, like in a, like an Elvis thing. But
It's a multiverse.
Simpsons. But Marge would be very sentimental, and we even see her like even in the next season, she's there with the quilt, which that Santa's little helper destroys.
And she's helping Lisa
Yeah,
add to it.
she would be, and the idea, it's kind of just insulting, kind of the idea of just Marge would sell the wedding ring.
Yeah.
And it's so it's obviously a flippant joke. It's obviously, but Marge's character has been established. We've seen her and she's getting drunk on punch and eating like a slob and thing. And it's just, Marge is like kind of the opposite of what the housewife would be. But then that does actually become her character, really.
The opposite of what she is currently.
Yeah.
And kind of aspects of what Homer is in this episode becomes Marge's character. Not all of it, obviously, because Homer still is dumb.
Yeah.
And
He's, and then the rest of the family are they're horrified, which would be, the kids have always loved TV more than Homer. It's like, but like, you would see Homer kissing. Remember Homer kissing the TV?
Oh, TV, we'll never fight again.
Mwah. So they sell the TV and they collect the money. And in the session then, so when they finally have this appointment, Dr. Monroe asks the Simpsons to draw pictures of the source of their problems. And Bart and Lisa and Marge draw Homer.
Again, I could imagine this in a later episode, and like Bart and Lisa draw Homer, and like Maggie draws him as well.
Yeah.
Something. And then Marge is like, children,
stop it. And like for someone like, Marge studied art, we'll see that later down the line. And in this one, she's terrible. Her drawing's awful.
it's all crude. And
It's so crude. And it's like, oh, like they just can't do Marge right in this episode. So, distracted, Homer draws an airplane, and Dr. Monroe scolds him for being a bad father figure. It's like, oh, Homer, you obviously didn't notice that the rest of your family see you as a tyrant, and and
So I'm gonna go out there with a harebrained, like definitely not canon theory here.
Oh.
Duffy Beer. So Homer draws an airplane as the source of his problem. He's a lot like Marge in this episode.
Oh, because Marge has a fear of flying, and her father, yeah.
I ain't saying nothing. Maybe this was a bit of a prototype.
Prototype idea.
It definitely wasn't, but it's just a funny coincidence.
It kind of reminds me of Homer in the Cult episode, where I especially like the bit with the car crash. It's like, or the car chase. It's like, there was no scene with car chase. Oh, sometimes I just make up my own.
Oh, yeah.
And but then Bart, so Dr. Monroe's saying all this stuff. Oh, Homer, you're retiring and your family doesn't respect you and you're a fat idiot and all that. Well, basically something like that. And then Bart is agreeing with Dr. Monroe, making Homer furious enough to attack him. And I think he grabs like a lamp. It's actually like a really funny kind of like, slapstick that it keeps in. It's this really violent reaction of
a lamp.
The idea is like, wallop you. And Dr. Monroe then is like, Homer, you gotta venture violent urges somehow.
Creatively.
Yeah. And it's like he gives them all like padded mallets to work out their aggressions without obviously harming each other. And they start just whacking each other a bit with their foam mallets. And then next thing, Bart's like, oh, wait a minute, you can remove the padding, it's going to hurt even more. And then he just removes the padding and hits poor Dr. Monroe in the leg with this proper metal, like a metal bang against his
It looks so sore, doesn't it?
I can feel it. I can feel it through the screen. It's not even like, like a cartoon sound. It's a proper, like, they got metal and they whacked it against, like, a table or something. And Dr. Monroe's like, and he's getting a bit more frustrated at this point. You can kind of see the frustration in his face and that. And Dr. Monroe then calms all. He's just,
calms the family down and tries a different thing. He's trying to cling on to that, like, doesn't want to give the double your money back.
Yeah. So he's there and he decides to resort to aversion therapy by wiring the family members to an electric generator so they can all deliver shocks to one another, that kind of thing. And it's just a thing where, they'll decide to zap one of the family members. And so all the Simpsons, they're strapped in, and Dr. Monroe instructs them to only shock someone else if that person has hurt them emotionally. And the next thing is they all start shocking each other. And it's just like, and then it's like even like someone, they're all shocking, like even Maggie's getting shocked. And then next thing is like it's like, who's shocking Maggie? I never wanted you, you were a mistake.
Marge is slamming the button down.
Homer's there, like, I was meant to work in the bowling alley. And so they're all shocking each other, and this is causing like kind of a blackout. The electric generator, wherever it is just becoming overwhelmed. And in the reception area of Dr. Monroe's other patients, they're leaving the office. There's actually the perfect family from earlier. Remember the ones that were singing B-I-N-G-O? There's like a quick thing of them being in the office when the Simpsons are initially walking in.
So they were going to Dr. Monroe. So they weren't as happy as the scene.
They weren't as happy. It was all a facade.
It always is, Duffy Beer.
It always is. They're just a bit too perfect and a bit rubbing in your face about it, But anyway, this is causing like kind of a blackout or, a brownout, like whatever that is.
The kind of, it shows Springfield being...
all the lights are dimming and going up and down. The whole, all the houses and homes, everything's just going like into sort of darkness and then light. And so... they're all shocking each other anyway, and this part of the episode actually made a brief appearance in the 1990 action film Die Hard 2.
It was on a TV on the movie.
Yes, there's like a scene in, I think they're on a plane or something, and just a bit of them being zapped, that like a little mini second, and like I suppose it's that kind of one of the first sort of cameos
of the Simpsons.
I don't know.
Oh well, it definitely would be the earliest episode to be cameoed, I'd be willing to say.
I recall Bart Simpson being mentioned in the Snapper. the Zapper because I was there.
He is mentioned in the Snapper.
Yeah,
When was
because
the Snapper? It was the mid-90s, wasn't
that
it?
was 1993, wasn't it?
Oh, the Simpsons aired in Ireland and...
It's a strange one, yeah. The I know in the Snapper when what's the girl called in it? Shannon or Sharon?
Sharon.
Are you all right there, Sharon? Yeah.
Sharon.
And the bit where they're like, "Who's the father, Sharon?" And she's like, "It's Bart Simpson. None of your fucking business."
Oh, so I remember there was the box sets big in Ireland.
Yeah. I wonder, it obviously made, because Simpson, like, Bart Mania was huge.
Yeah.
So obviously it must have crossed over. Sure, people must
in
have
magazines and stuff.
Yeah, and people had kind of like the t-shirts and a lot of kind of unofficial goods probably. Yeah, it's just obviously it was in pop culture. I wonder because the Simpsons, Bart was like immediately huge.
Yeah.
It's very strange how I don't know how, like, in hindsight it became so big really, because the episodes are kind of weak at the beginning. Like, there's not a real, maybe with season 2, but definitely even like with season 1, they were a huge success.
Well, the shorts, yeah, as well, were a success. We thought the shorts were kind of naff, but they were obviously offering something different in the time.
Yeah.
Something a bit edgier
Yeah.
than Care Bears and other 80s cartoons.
When was that dinosaurs thing? Did you ever see the dinosaurs? They were like from the Henson Company.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. They were kind of like a sitcom, kind of a parody of a sitcom family.
Yeah, we won't spoil the ending of it.
It's very sad. So, how did the dinosaurs die in real life?
So billions of years later, back to Springfield.
And so Dr. Monroe's like, stop zapping each other, stop it. And then he's like, and realizing that it's, useless. Monroe then unplugs the generator and begs the family to leave. And Homer's not having any of it. Homer's like reminding him, "Oh, double money back guarantee, Monroe." And then Dr. Monroe's like, "Okay, just leave and never come back." And
he's like, "You're the worst family I've ever seen."
Yeah, and he hands over 500 schmackaroos while ordering never to tell anybody that they were ever there. And with a fresh sense of teamwork, and they're like, "Wow." Marge's like, "Oh, Homer, really know how to provide for the family." And they're like, the kids are all like, "Oh wow, Dad, this is great."
Ironically ends up bringing the family closer together.
Yeah.
By failing at therapy.
Ha ha ha. And they all decide to buy a new television, and they walk off happily into the sunset. Or maybe it's not sunset, it's like dark moonlight.
Yeah, into the moon.
Over the horizon. And it's such a cheesy ending.
It just ends then.
It just ends. It doesn't end on a joke. It ends on that kind of like.
It's got the little.
The irony.
B-I-N-G-O. Not singing it, but the theme of it is kind of playing in the background.
And then into the credits. Yeah, it's very just. It ends on that, as you say, like it's sort of all the irony is that. They were getting therapy, but that's actually what brings them together, kind of thing, of failing therapy.
It's actually funny, though, because more so focuses on how proud they are of Homer for providing for them through, like, getting double your money back thing from Dr. Monroe.
Capitalists.
But all Homer did was press him for it, and the theme of the episode wasn't really about the family not having faith in Homer. It was about Homer not having faith in the family. So
yeah, or coming together or something. At least if it was a thing of like, "Hey, don't you shock my son." A funnier thing would be like if Monroe was attached to something maybe, and they all like,
start shocking Monroe.
"Hey, don't you call Homer that?" And then Marge is like, when Homer's like, "I can only say that about the boy," and then all this, and they all just bully Monroe. And then something.
Maggie starts.
And Maggie's like, "Yeah." Yeah, and it'd be like if there was something along the lines of that, but they don't come together. It just that they're kicked out and they're so dysfunctional that that's the happy ending really. And like and also like maybe in a more classic episode, then the episode might end with a joke, kind of something maybe dark,
of like something like Snake going, all right, another refunded customer, and he's going ready to follow them and rob them or something.
Yes,
And,
something kind
he's
of,
like, "Arr," and then he's just like,
it'll kind of make fun of the happy ending.
and then Homer like, "Wah!" And it also isn't that the ending of the Boy Scout episode where it's like B-I-N-G-O, and then it's like
the Predator stuff.
the Predator. It's like a Friday 13th style thing. It was like,
Ah, don't get me started on that, Duffy Beer. I've got sleepless nights about that. Boy Scout.
if I was to choose another episode, again comparing all these early episodes to other episodes, if I was to compare it to a better episode, it would be that Boy Scout episode. If that was the better one that ended on the BINGO.
Terrifying ending.
That and the plane, the rocket episode, the Halloween episode. But
So
yeah,
let's see then.
how are
I
we?
take it that we didn't like the ending, but how do we rank the rest of the episode?
How will we rank this?
Worst episode ever.
Out if this episode is a disgrace. Is there no disgrace like home?
disgrace.
Or is there no disgrace like this Simpsons episode?
Yeah.
So, Duffy Beer, it's time to get into the ranking system. So, for those who are listening for the first time, we have a ranking system that ranks 4 categories out of 3. The first category is emotion. So, did it tug at the old heartstrings?
Did it make me feel feelings?
Did it make you cry?
Did it make me cry?
Little wee baby.
Little baby. Yeah, disgrace. Clean yourself up.
And then the second category is laughs, which is pretty self-explanatory. Like, how good were the jokes? How many jokes were there, kind of thing.
Any
Was
chuckles?
it funny? How many chuckles, or did it just leave us with a kind of a smile on our face, or did it leave us with an upside down smile on our
Upside
face?
down.
Like Homer's Odyssey, but that's another episode.
Here.
Go back and listen to last week's if you want to hear about Homer's Odyssey. So the next one is lines. Like how memorable were the lines? How quotable were the lines?
Yeah, so
When we
just
think of The Simpsons, there's a lot of very quotable lines that you just kind of throw about in everyday life.
yeah. How ingrained do they get in your head?
Yeah, in terms of the millennial culture. How big are they? And then the final category is story, which in a 3-act structure, how does it hold up? How consistent are the characters? How good is the story?
Yeah. How it all pieced together and
Because sometimes, like, when you think about The Simpsons, some of the best episodes aren't actually the funniest, but they're actually just really well written stories.
yeah. There's just a lot of tosh gone into them and yeah.
Yeah.
So emotion.
What are we ranking for emotion, Duffy Beer?
I'm going to give it a 1.
I mean,
That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just there's not really anything.
oh yeah, this
There's
is
no heavy moments or, there's not a big dramatic scene of Homer saying something really personal and,
or opening up to the family, or the family like opening up to him.
Yeah.
There isn't. That's kind of what I was saying about the ending of it as well, is that they all kind of like become proud of him at the end. That like,
Yeah.
oh, you got the money from Dr. Monroe, we're proud of you. But it's like, but that wasn't really the theme of the episode. It was more to
No.
do with Homer lacking faith in his family, not the other way around.
Yeah. If it was, say, that episode where Marge is part of the social club, say, the way that episode gets very dark, when she's trying to sew the outfit and you just feel really sorry for Marge the whole time. And then,
Yeah, she feels very vulnerable.
yeah, it's, and whereas this episode, it's kind of the same themes, but there's not, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a very light episode, really. And I kind of felt a bit sorry for Dr. Monroe. He was getting a bit stressed.
And it's funny because, I mean, it like passes him off as like a schlubby kind of
Quack, kind of.
backup, but then he actually was trying to, his methods might be a bit questionable, but it seemed like he actually was trying to help them.
He wasn't, yeah, he wasn't in
I
any
mean,
way.
he believes in shock therapy and getting baitings with sticks.
It's like he's questionable methods, but it's nothing that's really. It's just this is
His heart
probably
was
the
in-
90s culture kind of.
His heart was in the right place, and if he wanted to get $1 or $2 extra for that.
So for the second category, laughs.
So I think we're going to give it a 2 for laughs.
I give it 2, yeah.
I think
as
there's a
well.
couple of good bits that maybe pop it up a bit.
Yeah.
It's one of those really inconsistent episodes, I think, where some of it is like really good and some of it's like really mediocre.
Yeah, like I like, say, when there's interesting moments in it when, say, they're in the car and they're, you know, that animation. It's not necessarily funny, but it's kind of memorable, say.
Or driving off the hill.
Yeah. And then Marge dancing when she's drunk. There's little moments that are kind of a bit surreal that you're kind of like, oh.
Yeah, that are kind of, you'd have a smile on your face. And then there's the get the gun.
Get the
Better
gun.
get the gun line, which is like got a good chuckle out of the two of us when we were rewatching
that's a
it.
proper funny joke.
It's a
now.
proper golden age Simpson kind of joke.
Yeah. There's also, like, say, there's Mr. Burns and, like, Mr. Smithers that have kind of banter that feels like something from an actual, like, current episode or classic episode more so.
Yeah, that's...
It already sets kind of establishes, like, their dynamic.
Yeah, so I think a 2 would be good for laughs.
2 is
then.
reasonable, yeah.
And then leading on to that, as you said about Mr. Burns and Smithers
Yeah.
having the kind of banter you'd expect, what do we give it for lines? And
I give it a 2 as well. There's nothing really standout quotable moments in it, or again, there's like just little moments, as I said already, like when it's they're the devils in the car, maybe Mr. Smithers and Mr. Burns having a few, you know, at the beginning when Mr. Burns is such a hard ass kind of character, and
yeah,
you know, it actually, I think it's quite well written in those bits.
so actually there's some parts of it that I find, for some reason I find the jelly and like the first part of it like very memorable. Not for any specific reason, but it's just the imagery of it or something. There's
Yeah.
like I really like the opening of it, and it gives me similar vibes to, I know you brought up the one with Marge and the dress earlier, and it gives me really, and the social club, and it gives me very similar vibes to that episode. And it's kind of like what we were talking about with Homer's Odyssey and the Union episode. Then it's like you can see ideas in season 1 that were maybe revisited when they had more scope
Yeah.
to kind of execute them better.
Yeah, because it's sort of, I think, again, like, say, this will go into, I suppose, our story section really, but the episode's quite messy the way it's just written.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily bad. It has very funny moments, kind of, that are just sort of weakened by the structure, really.
It's
that they don't
very
have.
inconsistent. Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't have that kind of, you know, presence yet to kind of. But, you know, it's still, I think is, say, the story is the main issue, the way it's written.
Leading on from the lines then.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of going into the story talk here, so story, we have issues then.
Yeah. I would give story a 1.
Yeah, it's just it's not consistent. It's not even that it's, 1 doesn't mean it's crap necessarily.
No.
But like,
It's kind of like, so the story, and then also the writing for the characters. The characters are just so unrecognizable.
Marge is a completely different woman.
She's a different. You're not the Marge I fell in love with.
Even Lisa, I found, is like, didn't really know what to do with her, and she's just kind of skipping around in the back.
Even Maggie has more presence than Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa's just she's just like, and I think we brought this up in another episode, but it's kind of that female Bart thing.
Yeah.
Of like, well, they just made her a female Bart.
Smurfish kind of syndrome.
Yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
It's sort of, you know, and then we have Homer, say, Homer's the one that's feeling embarrassed. Homer's the one that's like offering to sell the TV.
It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre to see it, knowing the context of how the rest of the Simpsons goes.
I think, like, Homer loves TV so much. Remember, like, it's like one of the Treehouse of Horror ones, when he's the last man. It's like
on the planet.
Yeah, and it's like he's there, like, little Marge, little Lisa, and then and the rest, and it's like the TV's floating with Maggie. Oh, just everyone's so off. So the whole episode just has this kind of just uncanny quality to it.
I mean, we're in the age of AI now, and it's kind of like gives the impression of like if AI could generate a Simpsons episode.
And it's just like this random weird looking doctor. And weird background characters that kind of look like the Simpsons.
They could be in the Simpsons, but they're generated.
It's like there's a character, the father has sort of a beard line similar to Homer in a way.
And even like the script is kind of similar to a Simpsons episode, but the characters aren't a bit messed up, you know. So that's then Duffy Beer giving it a 1 for emotion, a 2 for laughs, a 2 for lines, and a 1 for story, which is a 6 out of 12 or 2 out of 5.
Yeah, it ranks up to a 2 out of 5.
I think that sounds fair for this one.
Yeah, it's just below kind of a middle episode.
Yeah,
kind of one you probably would forget about.
I think so.
It's not, I find Homer's Odyssey is more frustrating to watch because Homer's Odyssey is just all over the place. It's so boring and just, whereas this episode has a few little moments that just, they're just not punchy enough. It's just like, out of all, if you were going to rank all these episodes, it's going to just fall way, way behind.
Because even the highs of this episode, like, they get lost under the weight of, like, there's so many better like moments than I don't even know if like they get the gun part, which was my favorite part of the episode, my favorite joke of the episode. I don't even know what that rank in like the top 50 Simpsons jokes.
No.
Do you know?
Oh, definitely not. I wouldn't
like,
say.
So that's the height of this episode, and it's still nowhere near the rest of the Simpsons. Like,
I laughed just like this one line, better get the gun, of kind of.
Yeah, that's how we
the only
remember.
reason to watch the episode.
That's how we remember.
I suppose, like,
No
again,
Disgrace
like,
Like
maybe
Home.
for Dr. Monroe, like, it's an interesting way to, the first, say, Itchy and Scratchy moment. There's just moments in it,
true.
yeah, there is moments in it where it's like, it's kind of like watching an early draft of an episode.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it.
I'd probably recommend watching it. I just don't think you'll get much out of it.
No. So 2 out of 5. And also in the ranking, and a tradition that we like to do is we like to, well, we're both fans of music. So we like to tie that in slightly, and this is a little thing that we do where when we're writing up the episode and reviewing it and stuff, we think, what song would go well with this? What song would suit the theme of this, or the memorable moments of this? Or I think you put it a good way, Duffy Beer. You said if you made a montage of the episode or an AMV of the episode, what song would you play?
If I was in
over
any
it?
way creative.
Well, how creative are you with this one then, Duffy Beer? Have you got a song for us?
I've got a little song.
You got a little song?
A little song.
Little something.
A little something by two Manchester fellas, if you might know them.
I don't know.
They
Did
might be.
Manchester ever have any artists?
I don't know. Manchester's a bit not for the music scene, I don't think.
No, there's nobody big from Manchester.
No. Think.
There's no Oasis in the sands of lack of musical talent in Manchester.
Yeah. I have She's Electric.
She got a
Family full of eccentrics. She's done things I never expected.
I
Need more time.
That's our best Manchester accent.
That's my impression of Liam Gallagher.
So She's Electric. That's a good one because the zapping bit.
Yeah, I think that's the electric scene in this episode is just the most famous.
It would be, wouldn't it?
I think even like when I was kind of initially even like researching this episode, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, the electric scene," and you're just sort of like, it's only in about 2 minutes of the actual episode.
It's a tiny.
It must have, that Die Hard 2 scene must have just subliminally got to people.
Yeah,
they're like, "Oh, I love that episode."
That's probably it. It's like, oh, where do I know that from? Die Hard 2. No, I need to watch it again.
And I just imagine it's like, it's not just obviously because the shock therapy scene, it's kind of like, you know, dysfunctional family as well, and it's just like, I can imagine Marge dancing around and everyone, and Homer's just like embarrassed, and it's like, "Oh, I want you to know."
It's a good song.
Yeah. And you're going to see Liam Gallagher, actually.
I am. I'm looking forward to it.
You've seen, actually,
I've seen him
Oasis.
before, and I've seen Oasis before when I was a
wee lad.
Wee
A wee lad. Back before they split up and are
Had big
never
fights
reuniting.
and stuff. I wonder, is there similar parallels with like the Simpsons writers having fights or something behind the scenes? Gabber Shoopo could be Liam Gallagher.
That'd be cool. I wonder what like Oasis ever. Have any of Oasis ever been in an episode of Simpsons?
I don't think so. Have they?
No.
They didn't crack America enough.
No, they were kind
They
of...
definitely would have had. Were they in the English episode?
No. Freaking Ryan Giggs was mentioned.
Ugh.
Ugh.
Yeah, no, they should have mentioned. I think.
Even Morrissey, all like, the Smiths have been mentioned, also from Manchester.
But never Oasis, yeah. Just
Never
couldn't crack
Oasis.
America. So that's it then for There's No Disgrace Like Home.
Yeah, kind of. It's a very middling kind of one where you're just sort of like, yeah, it exists.
It's a fun one to put on in the background.
Yeah. I don't have any kind of great anecdotes about it or anything.
Yeah.
The way in Homer's Odyssey we're kind of like bullying it.
It's a fun one because you've got like
all those ugly
opposite
faces.
side of the
yeah.
opinions. All the faces. Yeah, it's very interesting faces
All
to look at.
familiar faces, worn out pollution.
That should have been the song for Homer.
Can we change it? Yeah. No disgrace like home. It's not a disgrace of an episode, but it's just not even a drag. I don't know. It exists.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
This is fine.
It's like
We say as the place is burning around us.
yeah. It's like not offensive.
No.
It's not great.
No.
It's fine.
It's fine. It didn't make me feel electric.
Didn't make you feel electric.
No.
Well, hopefully the next one does then.
Give me a buzz.
So that's it from us then. Hi diddly ho.
It's time to go.
Doodaloo.
Do 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 do.
Shh.